So I've just deburred the edges here with a flat disc. So what am I trying to achieve? Well, mainly I've got a curve this way, and then I've got a very slight, see it here, slight curve this way. So in terms of the English wheel, if I put a piece of rubber around the top wheel and have a slightly curved lower wheel, and you roll it back and forth, you will get a curve in that direction only. If you then don't have the rubber wheel, you just have flat here and a curved lower wheel, and you run it back and forth in different directions but not the edges, then you get a compound curve. It will blow that way and that way. So basically I want a lot of this way and a tiny bit that way. So my options are to start putting a curve in this way, just a mild one, then take the rubber off and start to develop the curve this way, or do it the other way around. I'm not quite sure which is best. I'm probably going to go for putting a bit of a curve in this way to get it started, and then bit by bit bring the other curve in, because that curve's very slight and I don't want to overdo it, because it's easier to add more curve than to kind of get it back out. So you can see that from there to there is almost flat but not quite, slight curve. So that's the plan. This is the first time I've ever done it though, so I have no idea how this will turn out. I'm just going to do it very gradually and see how I go, and keep measuring on the buck. So how much curve do I want? That one's probably a bit too much. That one's certainly too much. So we're down to these more subtle ones. That's almost flat. So if we take that one, for example, find the tightest curve, which is here, and put it behind it. I don't know if you can see, but it's very similar, slightly more curved than this. So that, not that I'm an expert, but that seems to me would be a reasonable good starting point. You might be wondering why I bought this particular one. It's not the cheapest one available. It's the cheapest one that's got a wheel that's a reasonable width up here. A lot of the cheap ones have a narrow wheel, about half the width of this. So it'll just take you longer to get anywhere. So it's the cheapest one that had a reasonably wide top wheel, and a reasonable selection of lower wheels. So hopefully I made the right choice. Okay, for a first attempt, I've started a curve on the panel. You can see some of the wheeling marks, which I'm going to have to get those out later on. So now I'm going to very gradually put a bit of curve this way into the panel as well as that way, and I've decided to go for a slightly flatter roller underneath here. So I want to just build it up gradually, and also it gives you a slightly bigger contact area with the aluminium. So let's see how that goes. Well, all I can say is something's happening. Basically I need, at the widest part, I need a slight curve, and then I need to curve it more here. So I've been working on this area to get it to bulge upwards to bring that in. And you can see if I put a flat edge, there, you can see now there's a gap under there. There's a gap under there, so I am getting a bit of curvature on it, not just that way but that way as well, and more at the narrow end, which is what I need. But I've got a long way to go yet. I've probably spent about an hour on it so far, and if I use my template you can see I've got a long way to go. Right, so you see that shows me basically I've got to make the middle, I've got to get the middle to bulge up more by about 1 centimetre. So I'm going to take a break and watch some more videos, but when you put this on you can see that's what's required. So very slowly but surely Just try it here as well. Need to do more there. So coming along very gradually. I shape my panel. I've got a little bit of curve developing here. I'll need more here than here. Got just the beginnings of a bit of a ripple here. I mean, it's not really a ripple, it just curves in a bit there, you see. So I may do some diagonal wheeling there. And rookie mistake, I said earlier that I matched this to the curvature of the bodywork here. This one is the tightest curve. Actually, you don't need to do that. The more this curves, the smaller the contact area with the metal. So you will get a few marks like these. So apparently, I went and watched some more videos basically. What you need to do is just have a very modest curve roller here. So you get a wider contact area and just start rolling the panel. It still stretches out widthways, and that's what gives it the bow in the middle. It's not actually the curvature of this. When it starts to curve a lot, then you need a curve roller simply to stop the edges putting grooves into the underside, which might show through on the top. It's not about necessarily matching this to the curvature of the bodywork. At least it may be when you get towards the finished shape, but initially you don't need to do that. So that's a learning point there for me. I've cleaned this roller because it had little bits of aluminium stuck to it. And the other thing I noticed, you can actually polish this with very fine grit sandpaper while spinning it, because if this is polished, you can see it's pretty smooth, but it's not polished. It's got tiny machining lines in it. If that's polished, you end up with a polished finish on your panel. So that's something worth doing. But I'm going to go for a kind of brushed aluminium look when this is all finished, because it's not going to stay shiny like polished chrome when it's been on a beach for very long. So that's that. So what do I need to do today? This curve's coming along fine. I need to bring this down more, which means I need to stretch out the material here, sort of make it bulge more so it bends down. And then if these edges start to wrinkle a bit or ripple, I'm going to wheel it diagonally at 45 degrees like this, which apparently, haven't tried it yet, will remove any waviness that develops here as you do that. So that is, so you can't, it's a bit tricky to see it. There's a bit of a inward bowing forming here as I bring the curve here. So the way, and the same the other side, so the way to get rid of that is allegedly to wheel it at 45 degrees along this edge, which just put some stretch in here, and the wrinkle start at the beginning of a dip, a wrinkle will disappear. So I've done it here, something like that, and you go right to the edge, not quite on the edge, very close to it. That way, isn't it? Yeah, so you walk it like that. You can see that the edge now level, if anything, is curving slightly that way. It's kind of what we want. So, see where's there? See, it's starting to just bow a bit down there. So I'm going to do the same thing here. And I still haven't reached the stage where I can do this automatically. I have to actually think. So I wheel that way, and then I want to wheel back, shift it across about 1 centimetre, so I need to go that way, don't I? No. Yeah, that way, and then like that, then like that, then like that. So I'm sort of walking it. So I'm not that great at this yet, but I'm getting better. So I'm walking it along, and then we'll walk it back the other way. So I can go like that, like that, like that, going that way, then I turn it, come that way, turn that way, turn that way, turn that way. As you can see, the contact patch is only about just under 1 centimetre wide, so I need to move across in steps of about 1 centimetre, about 8 mil. So that way, that way, that way, that way, that way. Now if I keep doing this, I'll get little dents forming here, which is the end of the travel of the wheel, so I'll occasionally going to have to come a bit further to blend it in. But most of the work I'm putting into this end half, and I don't go all the way to the edge, because it's the edges you don't want stretched. You want the middle to stretch and the edges to stay where they are. So the middle, the only way it can go is up. It bulges up. So that's what I'm doing. I'll just do about 5-10 minutes of this, and then I'll test fit it and see whether we're getting any improvement or not. Right, here's another thing. If you don't use gloves, which is actually doable as long as you deburr the edges, you can run your hand along it and you can feel straight away there's a crown there, bit of a dip there, crown there, less pronounced, and actually it flattens out here towards the edge, so I do need to work the edge a little bit at some point, or have it over long and then cut that piece off, which is what I might do in future. So lesson learnt there. So I may have to come a little bit nearer the edge. I've just been rolling this area, and you see you can't really see it, there's a depression there, bump there, depression here. This is coming out. This is much smoother now. So I'm just going like this here to bring that out, and then a few longer ones to blend it in, and then we'll do a test fit. Right, well that depression here has disappeared. I've got a dip there because I've only been wheeling up to here, so maybe I need to go a little bit nearer the edge, because I've got a dip here now, so I need to wheel this area to bring it up a touch. And then if I should leave that sort of nearer the end, I'm not sure. And then you can see, so we've got once I've got rid of that depression, we're going to have a gradual curve to the middle, which is what we want, and then a more pronounced curve from then on, which you can see is really developing quite well now. Again, I've got a little dip there because I haven't wheeled right to the edge. You're not supposed to wheel right to the edge because the edge stays the same size, and as you stretch the middle, the only way it can go is to bulge up. So if you wheel the edges, you flatten everything down again. So not quite sure what the solution to that is. Do you make your panel 3 centimeters too wide and then cut this piece off? That might be the way I'll go in the future. So I'm going to wheel a bit closer to the edge, maybe to about here, and then if I have to trim a bit, I have to trim a bit. But I'm learning. But the main thing is, the theory works in that, I had a depression here, I wheeled all this area and it's now gone. And then I had to blend that in because I ended up with 2 bumps and it was ripply. So now I've got a gradual curve which is getting steeper towards this end, which is exactly kind of the direction we need to go. So I'm pretty pleased at the moment, seeing as this is the first panel I've ever done. I've also done a test fit on the body, and you can see it's getting closer. And if I use my template here, right, that's quite reassuring, because basically I've got the right curve, and all I got to do now is bring it up a bit in the middle. You see? And not by far at that, by about 1 centimetre, about 8 millimeters. So that's really reassuring, actually. So we're definitely moving in the right direction. And it just looks good too. So of course this doesn't actually really lie on the top, this actually goes on this side, but the these are sections of actual circles, so it doesn't actually matter so much where I test fit it. They should fit all the way around. So the next thing then is, there's different ways of getting your panel into this gap. You can spin the wheel, especially if it's a big wheel, and then bring it in, and it'll kind of grab the metal and bring it in. But the other way, bearing in mind this roller is curved slightly, is to come in at 45 degrees. So you come in like that, and then literally with your chest or your belly, just basically smack into it and it'll go in like that. See? Now you'll notice that the metal here is bending slightly. I thought this had to be like super mega rigid and mega strong and rigid. Actually it doesn't. There's got to be a little bit of give in the metal, because the panel, where you've been rolling it, is thinner than at the edges. So if there was no give here, it'd get stuck each time you move towards the edges. So it needs to apply a kind of constant pressure. So having this with a little bit of give in the metal, just a bit, is what gives you the constant pressure, even though the thickness that's rolling through is varying very slightly. The other thing I'm noticing as a beginner, as you roll it through, you can feel where the thinner metal is, because it suddenly gets a bit easier to push through. So you get a feel for where you've been thinning out the metal, which means you're spreading it widthways. So I'm going to put this in now. Sorry. I'm going to wheel along here to get this little depression out. Then I'm going to wheel the whole thing end to end to just bring the whole middle up just a touch. So I'm just going to do these ends first. So I'm going to come a little nearer the edge, maybe there. Just do this. And if I get bored doing it that way, I might go around widthways instead. So although this seems incredibly slow, I am getting there. And I don't intend to be making lots of panels like this for a living, so if I'm just making the one. Now I'm going to get a ridge here, so I'm going to have to blend this in. So I'm going to come a bit further this way now, otherwise I'm definitely going to get a ridge. So I'll do it like that, and then do a long one to blend it in. Long one, a couple of long ones. And you can feel it. So you can feel if you're bringing that depression out. So it's still a slight depression here, but it's getting better. So I'm actually going to go back and do it again with the odd long one. Sometimes forget what I'm supposed to do. Right, now, so test fit. You can see now that this edge was straight, but now it curves a bit in because of the changing shape of the panel. So if I look at this edge, you can see, I mean, it needs bending a bit that way, but you can see it's pretty much touching all the way along. Now, proof of the pudding, what about this end? Because this circle is smaller. Well, look at that. If I just give that a little nudge, you can see pretty darn close, isn't it? Very close. So, little bit more curvature here, maybe. tiny bit more curvature that way, especially near that bottom edge. Now I've noticed, because I put more curve into here, into the middle, you can see there's a dimple. It's like wrinkling in there. So I mean, I can force it out by pushing it down, but what I need to do is a bit more of that 45-degree rolling along there, and that should get that out. So I'm going to take this tendency for it to dip in here, because I've expanded this out by rolling at 45 degrees along this edge, and take it almost to the edge, not actually on the edge but very close. So you can see from the marks these are about 45 degrees. Not sure if I should go all the way a little bit beyond it. I'm not quite sure actually, or how far in I should go. I'm going to learn the hard way. Well, it's coming out. Sometimes I figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. That way. So the worst of it was there, so I'm just going to do a little bit more here. That's it. Pretty much gone. Does it feel right? So that is pretty good fit. Really impressed with that. Maybe need a little bit here with the rubber wheel just to put the lateral curve on. You see here this bit of the panel is almost flat there, so put a bit more curve that way, just very gently using the rubber wheel lengthways along there, and then I would say that's a pretty good fit. The panel is slightly over long. I'm not quite sure whether, you see, I'm going to have some sort of side panel here that will come off, and then we'll work on the nose, which will be from there on, yeah, like a cowl. But this side panel is probably going to be detachable, because you're going to have your gear change linkage, all sorts of stuff in here you might want to get to quite easily. I mean, they'll all be detachable, but you know what I mean. So I'm not sure whether to put a step here, have the panels overlap, or just have a structure underneath it that they both fit to. There's going to be a bulkhead here as well, so if there's a bulkhead, steel bulkhead here, I can have a strip of steel welded to the bulkhead which runs under this side and this side with quick disconnect fasteners. I might do it like that actually, because if I put a huge step into this panel, it's 2mm thick. Knowing me, I'll probably ruin the lovely shape of my panel, which I've only just got right, so that might be the safest way to do it. So the aim now with the rubber wheel here and a slightly curved wheel underneath is to put a bit of curve that way in just this bottom of the panel, because if you can see this, it's still nicely curved. That bit has got missed, it's basically flat. So I'm just going to put a bit of curve in. Again, I'm going to take it easy as I do it. Basically, I'm just going to, I can't film it and do it at the same time, but instead of squeezing the metal, it conforms, the rubber pushes it onto the bottom roller, and so puts a bend in that way. Well, I'm pretty pleased with that now. So it touches all the way around there, and then all the way around here pretty much, And if I just check with my profile gauge that I made, it's, well, very close. Bit flatter there. You'll notice there's a slight dimple here, just there, but you can see I'm going to cut this panel along here and weld it, so this bit doesn't actually matter that much.